Well, it's a good evening here from the studios of Radio FM88 Australia. We'll be broadcasting from Brisbane. The picture in the background is the New Year's Eve celebrations on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Last week, as you probably realised, we had the Big Ben and the London fireworks for their New Year's Eve. So we decided to continue the theme. Now, as you notice, we're now on Amazon devices. So if you like 24/7, you can just ask Alexa, play Radio FM88 Australia. With that, further ado, I'll pass you to the top of the totem pole there. And the lady in pink, Salmon, is all the way from the UK. It's a good morning to you.
Morning, Jeffrey. Morning, Anne. And good morning to everybody who is listening to Dream in the New Dream, or whether you're listening to the replay, welcome. And today it's the 18th of January, 2024, and it's a number 9 day. So you know how I love my numbers. And I'm a number 9, got lots of 9s. And so, yes, so anyway, it's number 9 day. So anyway, without further ado, it's my great pleasure to have Anne Aleckson on the show. Now, I met Anne, I think it must have been right in the early days when I came to Australia and Brisbane. There's a sort of slight memory, but I can't remember. And we've connected over the years. I've had a couple of sessions with Anne, and I love the work that she's doing and has done. So welcome, Anne, to Dream in the New Dream, and it's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you, Andrena, and of course it's my absolute pleasure, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation with you and share whatever comes out, wherever we're going.
Exactly, we just go with the flow. So you're on a mission. You're driven by a mission to create peace and empowering other people to find their own peace. And I've always said, with all the fighting and the angry things that are going on, people are reacting and they're not looking at the anger within themselves. It's the trigger. So that's my way of seeing things. So, I say you've got to find the peace within, and then you don't react to, you see it from a bigger picture, if you like, of all these different scenes being played out. And it's how we can hold our light and our frequency to be of service to others. So you're a direct voice or a direct channel for the voice or the one. And you've recently, last few months, written a book. So let's go back to the very beginning, because I know we got lots to talk about. And, I'll ask questions and when they pop in and out. So you were born in Sydney. So let's start from there. So did you come from a family that were spiritual, or so would you like to share how your steps unfolded?
No, not at all. Okay, so my spiritual life has really only been the last 15 or so years. I come from a very business-focused family. Every single one of my family members are self-employed and have their own businesses, some big and some just small businesses like my own. And my father came from that background as well. So my father was a kind of a black sheep, an odd man out. So he took all of us, his 6 children and his wife, to Papua New Guinea when I was 5. So we all jumped on a plane. My youngest brother was 6 months old at the time. So he took us all over there, and he was working for the government over there. And I mean, it was just the most amazing upbringing in a foreign country where, you lived a fairly great life as a white person in Papua New Guinea at that time. So I won't tell you how long ago that was, but suffice to say, it was quite a while ago.
I understand.
We've never been a spiritual family, but even as I'm answering that question and I mentioned Papua New Guinea, I'm reminded of a time when we used to get broken into a lot in Papua New Guinea. People would break in and take, whatever they could get in the fridge or whatever they could get, literally. And we were broken into one time by a member of what was known as the Amekio tribe, so one of the tribes in PNG. And they coat themselves in pig fat when they're when they're hunting and doing these sorts of things. But that was a very spiritual experience for my brother. He was kind of in a trance while this person was in his room. And the only reason we knew he was there was because there was pig fat everywhere. But it just, reminded me of his kind of spiritual experience that he had. But suffice to say that my entire family is very unspiritual, very much grounded in this reality, fighting for what is normal and all of those things. I'm really kind of outside of that. And it's never been a problem until recently, which is interesting to me. I find myself being a little outside of the family now since my mother died last year, and then, well, it was the year before, December of the year before, and then my son died. So I'm left all alone now. Essentially, the rest of them have all got families and everything, and so it kind of pushed me even further away from the core of the family. But they don't understand me. They don't understand the book that I wrote and, what that's all about and that whole thing. So no, not from a spiritual family at all. And I wasn't having those experiences as a child like so many people do. My experience started because I was in such a dark place in my marriage, which was just ending, in my life, in my career, that I was literally on my knees every day doing the, I like to call it my eat, pray, love moment.
Oh, yeah.
Collapsed on the bathroom floor crying out, please, God, help me, tell me what to do. And boom, everything changed.
So how did it change? Obviously that moment you had like awakening, if you like. So how did that happen for you?
Well, I'd been having some spiritual experiences. So I'd come out of my my marriage, and I'd had a 1-year-old child with my husband. So we still had to have a relationship, which was a really uncomfortable relationship. So I was just not in a good place, and I started to read books about happiness. Someone actually said to me that I could be happy if I wanted to be, that happiness is a choice, is what he actually said. And I wanted to slap him across the face. Because if that were true, why wasn't I doing that? And why didn't I even realize that? But I thought I might try to prove him wrong. So I decided to study as much as I could about happiness. And I found all of these books. It was about 13, 14 years ago when there were lots of people that were teaching about happiness. And there was the happiness conference down in Sydney one year that I went to. But everyone was all talking about happiness and positive psychology at the time. So I read dozens and dozens of books on how to be happy. I read spiritual books. I read self-development books. I went to the happiness conference in Sydney. I just wanted to find out how to be happy. And every single one of the books and teachers, including the Dalai Lama at the happiness conference, said that the way to happiness was meditation. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that, knowing that I wasn't going to do it because I'm not going to sit for half an hour. Do you know what I mean? But for some reason, I thought, okay, I'll try 10 minutes. I'll see if I can do it for 10 minutes. So I sat down. I started meditating. I couldn't. I found a way to make it work for me, which was to count from 100 backwards. And it took me about 10 minutes. And while I was doing that, over the first couple of times, nothing happened. But one day I was sitting there and I was doing my counting down, and I was right near the end of it. And I heard a voice, and the voice said, "We are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be." And I thought, who's that? Looking around, because it felt like it came from inside me, but it also felt like it came from outside me. So I was hearing it with my ears, but I was also hearing it inside me and feeling it. And so that continued on for a couple of months. And then, you know, my human life was not getting any better. So that's when I started doing the falling on the floor saying, please, God, what do I need to do? So I've been hearing this every time I meditated. We are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. And I was curious about it. I started looking at people who did channeling and things like that. I came across Abraham Hicks. And I thought, I didn't think. I picked up one of their books and I had it in my hot little hands for 6 months before I read it. Nothing could make me read it. Even getting on a flight for 14 hours to Vegas from Brisbane, I came back and I still hadn't read it. So that was strange. But then I started reading it, and as I opened it up and started reading the very first introduction of it, I started crying, and I thought, well, this is really odd. Why? And there was this sense of recognition that this was what I was going to be doing. So, you know, that moment that I was lying on the bathroom floor asking God or whoever was in control of things, because I certainly didn't feel like I was, to tell me what I was supposed to be doing, I literally woke up the next morning and I had a compulsion to turn on my video and to start recording because I knew something was going to happen. So I sat down, I started to meditate, and as I started to meditate, I could hear, we are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. And they were telling me that they wanted to just let yourself go, just open your mouth up, don't, just trust. And so they started to speak through me. So that was the first time.
Wow.
It was very exciting. I got goosebumps. I felt like my head had been opened up and I'd been poured full of liquid honey. That's how I like to describe it.
Yeah, well, sounds lovely.
It does.
Yeah, so so that was the start of you channeling. Did you like do it for yourself for a little while before you did it for other people?
Andrena, do you know me at all? No. I immediately told everybody I could think of and said, come and let's do this. And I started actually doing it as my business right away. There was no hesitation. Now, that would be unusual for me at that point because I didn't know what I was doing. I am completely unsure of what I'm doing most of the time, not now, but back then. And I really didn't trust myself enough. But I thought, this is fun. I'm going to keep doing it. It feels like it's what I'm here to do. So I started doing it. And then when I started telling people on social media, at Facebook at the time, it was brand new, I started getting pushback from people who were in the spiritual communities, telling me that I shouldn't be advertising, that I shouldn't be telling people, I'm supposed to wait for people to come to me, telling me not to charge for my work and all sorts of things. So I completely shut down. I shut myself off a number of times as these sorts of things happened because I kept thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just new to this. They must know more than me.
Yeah, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. But obviously, as time went on, I mean, look at you now. So anyway, keep going.
Well, I mean, you know, I did keep going, and that's the thing. I did have these moments where I completely shut down and went away and did something else and then ended up coming back to it because I'm compelled to do it. Over the last 15 years, I've probably been in and out of about 5 different jobs because I've gone, oh, I don't want to do this as a business. It's not working for me. People are, you know, not agreeing with me. My work seems to be a bit more in the future than most people's. So I kind of, I'm not acceptable to a lot of people who are in the mainstream spirituality, not the mainstream, but the mainstream spirituality. And they're used to the old ways of doing things. And my way is, all of my giftedness came when I stepped into the future. And so I know that's where I need to take people. But back in those early days, people didn't want to go there. They didn't want to know about it. They wanted to focus on ancestors and the old witchcraft and the way we did things back then.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been, we're actually supposed to bring in what's in the future. We're supposed to bring it in now and start working with it to get to that future. And that's and that brings me back to my whole purpose, which is, as you kind of hinted at a little bit at the beginning, I have a purpose statement: world peace through inner peace, one person at a time, and it starts with me, right? So my entire purpose, and I had an experience with all that, is just a few months after this opening that I had where I started channeling, I sat down to meditate, and I was lifted out of my body and taken into the future, and I saw the world in peace. I experienced it. I witnessed it. I saw it. I saw it working. And I know it's inevitable. With every core of my being, every cell in me, I know that that's where we're heading. And so when people, people say, "Oh, you want I talk sometimes about we have to stop homelessness, we have to stop hungry people, we have to all of these sorts of things," and people are all like, "Oh, that's so utopian, that's never going to happen." And they talk about how it's not fair for everyone to expect to have some level of a worldwide basic income and things like that. And they tell me all the reasons that we can't do it. But I don't believe that at all.
No, totally.
I know we've done it. I know we've done it. I have no doubt at all. Not going to happen in my lifetime, but there's some aspect of me that keeps going, just as there is of everyone else. And so my mission of world peace is not my mission as a person. My mission is one person at a time. The world peace is the mission of all of the aspects of me that will keep going, all the aspects of us that will keep going, all our future selves that will keep going, right? So it won't happen in my lifetime, because I actually then had an experience where I was told what year it would be. And that was, as I said, probably about 10 years ago that happened. And we've collapsed the time since then. So I don't tell anyone the time of it.
No.
Because we can collapse the time of it. We can bring it closer and closer and closer, quicker and quicker and quicker. But we have to let our past go. We can't keep dragging it with us. It's holding us back. It's like the wake of the boat, or the baggage.
Yeah. And because I always say, for me, is how can I help myself be the best version of me so I can help others do the same? And like you, I'm on a mission to help people in, whether it's a chat with a cup of coffee, a hug, or whatever. It's just the little things that make the difference, isn't it? And like, we are now in the greatest time in history, and we've all been waiting for this for many lifetimes, I think. For these changes, and we know things are shifting really fast and speeding up, and there's more and more people are waking up to themselves and what's going on around them, and even questioning now. So it is a fantastic time that we're in.
It's such an exciting time. Like I wake up in the morning so excited, whether I've got something going on or whatnot, or whether I'm in grief around my son or something else. I still wake up with that sense of excitement because, as I said, I've seen the world in peace. I know that we are moving into a new age, but I also know that we need to encourage the people who are already in the spiritual communities to come into this new way of being. We're so used to being in the old way of being that I think we're currently in a place where people who are outside of that old way of being think that they're in the new way of being, but they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the greatest, when you mentioned earlier about choice, and I listened to years ago, Matt Can, and he was saying, when people are going on about something and you just say, but you have a choice. So I've found now that when people are harping on about something in the past or whatever, and I just say, choose differently. You have a choice. You just choose differently. That's all you need to do, and it's putting it back on people, and it's like, I don't know what Jeff was doing.
He might be closing windows because of the storm.
Yeah, because I know there's a storm brewing. So it's like, what are you doing, Jeffrey? Shutting the windows?
I thought I put on mute. Did I put on mute?
No. Sounded like you were sweeping the floor.
Now the storm's coming, and of course our familiar frogs. Did you hear the frogs? I could hear the frogs coming.
No, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. I thought, what's he doing? Right, we're talking about choice. Yes, so you have a choice, and it's whether you want to choose differently or you want to stay in your little drama or whatever's going on for you, you know. And I just say, just choose differently. You know, it's as simple as that. You don't have to make it complicated.
Yeah, it is as simple as that, but it's also really, really hard to do because we don't, you know, it's our unconscious and all, you know, all that stuff. It really, really holds us back, and we don't even listen. Sorry, we don't even realize, well, we can't possibly know the truth of our unconscious that is holding us back. It has to be pointed out by someone else. And, you know, there are still so many people who just are not willing to do the inner work, to go inside, put their eyes inside and see what's happening for them. Because just like you mentioned earlier that everything's a trigger. And that's really what my whole life is about now, is about reminding people, you know, there's this concept in the spiritual circles called oneness, which hardly anyone ever actually lives. They talk about it. We're all one, but nobody lives it, or very rarely does anyone live it. And so this is what I'm here to do, is to encourage people and to help people to actually live oneness. Because if we're one, there is no one outside of you triggering you. You're doing it to yourself. You're giving yourself a gift so that you can find what's going on in here and heal it, because it's always caused by past trauma. And I speak about trauma as being subjective. Could be something as little as a parent saying no to you when you're 2. That to a small child is a traumatic moment. That's why they throw themselves on the floor and bang their head, kick their feet, because it's traumatic to them. And it creates most often an unworthiness wound. And so life is for being triggered by supposedly people outside of you, so that you can go, oh, shit, that made me feel this way. I better go and figure out why I feel that way about it, because really it had nothing to do with that. And so that's the work. That really is the work. And that's the work that I made a conscious choice to do for 10 years with the help of All That Is, who taught me, you know, when I had that spiritual awakening, I was downloaded with essentially what's in this book. I was downloaded with the teachings of All That Is. And it's all about this wounding and this oneness and the world in peace and how we're going to get there. And the only way we can get there is to understand about this level of healing, where everything outside of you is a trigger, because we're all one. So you're giving yourself a gift. And to take the concepts, even just the concept of the law of attraction, to take it from this airy-fairy concept out here and to actually ground it into reality, because that's who we are as a new human. We are living as our light being self in human form, walking this earth on purpose. I call it the enlightened change maker.
Very good. I don't think I've heard that one before, but yeah, I like that.
Thank you. I've been using it for quite a few years. I had a program a few years ago called Enlightened Change Maker. So that was kind of the beginning of it. But yes, it's always been a part of this, what this is all about. But, you know, even the concepts of the law of attraction, we're not supposed to do the law of attraction. We're supposed to be the law of attraction.
Yeah.
And so this is what I work with people on, really bringing those concepts and becoming them, embodying them, so that you're just living life on purpose in your highest frequency at all times. Because as a new human in your highest frequency, which is the frequency of your purpose, you create change in the people around you just by your presence. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be doing, we're supposed to be being, and that creates the transformation.
Yeah. How lovely is that? just being and not have to do, you know, like, whereas in the past you think you've got to help this one and you've got to do this and, you know, all these different things. But it's like the more you do the inner work, the more you're just being is enough for different things to happen around you.
Absolutely. And this is why I'm shedding right now everything that I've done in the past. I just don't want to do group programs anymore. I don't want to create courses and so that I can have squillions of money coming in. And it just does not appeal to me anymore. Sure, I want money. Of course I do. I want to live.
Yes.
I don't want more than I need necessarily. Yeah. Mm. And I think this is something that has to change in the world as well. You know, one of the biggest problems around money in the world at the moment is that all the people with the money have a lack mentality. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but if they didn't have a lack mentality, they would stop hoarding it. Mm. Right? So the lack mentality is a huge problem in the world. And of course, that's all related to self-worth. So again, it's the inner work that we have to do. When we have full and complete 100% self-worth, we don't go around trying to create programs and entice people into them so they can pay us money so we can become millionaires. We might do that and it might happen, and that's all well and good, but it's not all strategically. It's an energetic thing rather than a strategy thing and a thing that we learn going through school and our education is that, you know, we have to become these worker bees to either create money for someone who's at the top or to create money in that way for ourselves, to drag ourselves up to the top. And I just think that's such an old way of being, and we can't continue it because it's not going to serve who we become as the new human.
Totally. Yeah, I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So can I ask you, because I know you lost your mum like quite recently in the time today, and then you lost your son. How young was your mum, and are you able to talk about it and share?
Absolutely. Look,
you know, because you've had such an inner strength to keep going. You know, to lose your mum is one thing, and then to lose a son, I've got no idea how that is for you. So I take my heart to you for what you've gone through. But
you know, and there's a recognition within me about why that all happened and how it's part of, you know, me living my purpose and all of these things, which I can't talk about anywhere where any of my family are. And I'll explain that a little bit more further on. But so December in 2022, I had been living with my mum for 6 months because she'd had cancer. And she was getting close to passing. So she's 82. She would have been 82. And so I had moved in with her because I have two sons, one 35 and one 18. Right. And the 18-year-old was just coming of age and wanting to have his own independence. So I left him at home. His girlfriend moved into our apartment, and I moved in with my mum to help her. And so I was living at mum's, and I started writing the beginning of the book, the introduction to the book. And if you've read it, you'll understand what I mean, because I talk about how I'm sitting there finally writing this book that I've been trying to write. My mum's dying in her bedroom. My son's dying at his house a couple of suburbs away. So that's basically the beginning of the introduction.
Really?
And so she passed. So his wedding was November, in middle of November. And so she was desperate to stay here for that. And so we got to the wedding, and she was in a wheelchair because she was starting to, we were losing her. She wasn't really there at all. Now, Aaron, my firstborn child, born as I was a single mother at the time. We were together for 5 years before anyone came into our life. He had bowel cancer. He was diagnosed 3 years before, and the doctors told him he had a year to live. But he stayed for 3 years, right? So I was working with him energetically. I was doing healing on him every week, all of these sorts of things. But on his wedding day, he was yellow with jaundice. And he was in a wheelchair as well for much of the wedding. So, they were like a pigeon pair, Mum and him. And Mum and him absolutely adored each other. I was living with her when I had him. Living with my parents and my family when I had him. So he very much was incredibly close to her. And then the week after the wedding, he ended up in hospital for the first of, I think he had about 3 or 4 operations. And that was the beginning of the end for him. So December 6th, Mum died. January 5th, Aaron died.
Wow.
And March, I started writing the book proper. And that caused a problem for many in my family, especially his wife. They have 2 children who I don't get to see as much as I normally would anymore because of the feelings around the fact that I was able to write a book and I included bits of the story about their wedding and things like that in it. And also, as I was writing this book, I had a visit from Aaron, because for me, there was no sense of loss.
No.
Truly, because I've been in contact with both of them. I've been in contact with my father since he died 20 odd years ago. There's no separation. And so I had a conversation with Aaron, and we talked about karma, and we talked about the reason that what happened to him and the reason why he died at this age and blah, blah, blah. And I included that in the book, and that was very offensive to his partner. And I understand why. She's grieving. She's got to hate someone because that feels better than grieving, right? And so I'm the brunt of that. And I'm bringing as much compassion as I can to it and letting it be what it is. And the reason that I can do this, Andrena, is because everything that I talk about in this book, I've embodied. The concepts that I talk about, the oneness, the 100% responsibility for your own self, I embody those things. This is the way of the future. This is who we are as a new human. Now, don't get me wrong, people. I'm a human being. I have moments.
Yeah, earthly moments.
I've obviously still got grief and things like that. It's very emotional. But my point being, my purpose is world peace through inner peace, one person at a time, and it starts with me. I embody unshakable inner peace. And so that's how I can continue and do these things and understand what's happening with everyone else. Unfortunately, I don't get surprised by anything anymore. No, I'm serious. I don't get surprised by anything anymore. I've always got a pre-warning of when something's going to happen, whether it's good or bad. So, I noticed the other day, I said to someone, someone said something to me which should have been a surprise to me. And I said, oh, well, actually, I was expecting that. And then I was like, oh, I don't get surprised anymore.
Did you spoil the surprise?
You live in multi-dimensions, so there is nothing that you don't feel already or know already before it happens. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know there's something. So then I don't have that sense of, oh, that's the thing, it's just a recognition. Oh, that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I know, obviously, even though you're in communication, we still go through the grief and the sadness and the loss. We know they're around, but you can't physically hold them. And I know I listened to a recording, because a lot of people know that I've been taking these golden drops, as we call them, and there was a recording of a lady sharing about I've got my mum back. And, she was in a hospice anyway. They got her on the drops and she's walking and putting on weight and all of these things. And, I found it so difficult to talk about for a long time when she kept saying she's got her mum back. And I thought, gosh, I can feel it now that, once you've lost your mum, people don't really, we moan about our mums because like Carol and I say, oh, sorry, mum. Now we realise, because she'd say, she'd like say, shut the window, it's cold back here. And we go, oh, mum, it's hot. Like, And now when we're sat in the back in the windows, we're going, can you shut the window, please? And we, sorry, mum. And so, yeah, so it's a hard one, no matter what you feel about your mum or if you've had a good relationship or no, it's such a deep, when you lose your mum. And yeah, so it's like not having the physical around, and I think that's what we doing our best to come to terms with. But that touched me for a long time. Every time I was telling everybody this story, I was thinking, oh my God. And my mum's been gone, I think 5 years now. So yeah, but it's just
it never goes away. No. And that's the thing. And there's a line in the book where I say that, who am I now without my mum and without the child that made me a mum? I really lost myself for a time. But again, it has taken me to a place where my work is much more powerful. Now, I'm back doing sessions and they're so much more powerful than they were before. And there's also all that sense about, don't be chasing the money. It doesn't matter. All of those sorts of things are really standing at the forefront. And also I'm starting to feel this deeper compulsion to just get on purpose, to start talking to people about world peace. No matter how stupid it might sound to the majority of people who are going to, oh, you're dreaming, Yes, I am. What's the name of the show again? I am dreaming the new dream. Right?
Yeah. So with your book, had this been in your mind for a little while to start writing this, or did this come out of the blue and then did it like really flow and you just kept writing and the words were flowing in? So would you like to share?
Oh, look, it's such a good story, right? So in actual fact, when I first started channeling that very first time, I received all of the information that's in this book in that one moment.
Wow.
Right? And I had some freaky experiences in the early days of channeling. Like I, one point, put my hand to touch the wall and my hand went through the wall while I was channeling, and, all sorts of weird I talked to a tree. One day I was on my veranda and I heard this voice say, we need water. And I'm thinking, who the hell was that? And ended up having a conversation with a tree that was in my backyard saying, basically it was telling me that we don't belong here. We're not getting enough water. So that was really interesting. But it literally, all of the teachings downloaded in that one moment. And it took me 10 years to unpack it, to learn it myself and to start to embody it. And then the thing that was the catalyst was these deaths, of course. Because within, as I said, within 2 months of these deaths, 2 to 3 months, I just had this compulsion. I knew I had to do it. I knew I was in no place to do it because I was grieving. But I joined an online book writing intensive. It was for 1 week, 24/7 or however many hours. Now, I started writing the book and it was going really well. But it wasn't what it needed to be because I hadn't yet had the experiences with Aaron coming to me and talking to me about the karmic stuff. So I joined the next one that they had, which was in June. And I literally started from scratch again. And the book actually poured out of me chapter by chapter. There was no writing this chapter and then writing that chapter. It actually just came out of me as though it had already been written, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so I followed the process and got it written and published and all of that. Now, one of the other interesting things about it, the name, Mind Your Own Vibration. Many years ago, I used to be part of a group that did Friday night group gatherings and things in Brisbane here. And very early on in that, people would come and sit and they would ask questions. And all that is would always respond, or not always, but most of the time, with that expression, mind your own vibration.
Yeah.
Right? Because that makes total sense when we look at oneness, mind your own vibration. So I knew very early on that that was the name of the book, even before I knew that I was having a book, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it was
totally.
it was in there all the time. And I had an operation about a year ago, and I ended up staying at my mother's house. It wasn't a year ago, it was about 3 years ago. I ended up staying at my mother's house while I was recovering, and I had a dream. And, you know, it could have been a dream, it could have been a vision, it could have been the anesthetic. Whatever it was, in fact, this will pinpoint the time, but I can't think of what the time was at the time. Whatever it was, Wayne Dyer came to me and told me and showed me my book cover. And
Really?
it had yes.
Wow.
I mean, that was the anesthetic. It was not long after he had passed. So that was more than 3 years ago, whenever it was. So, you know, because he was my very first foray into spiritual and personal development. And I opened up one of his books in the first weeks of my awakening, and it had Abraham Hicks mentioned. And so that's how I found out about channeling. And that's when I came to realize that that's what I would be doing. So I feel very grateful to him for that. And I loved his work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I had that vision or anesthetic, you know, problem in my head growing up when I was recovering. I don't know what it was. I like to think it was a prophetic vision that I had, but there you go. So it all already started. Was all already downloaded, written in my head, because I've been thinking about this stuff since that moment, and I've been working it, and I've been working with clients, but also working it with myself first, you know, embodying it myself. So,
you know, but the clue is in the first conversation that you got within your own being when you started this conversation. That phrase. What was that phrase you just mentioned at the very beginning?
when
you had the voice.
Oh, yes, we are all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be, of course.
There you go. So they're in a different dimension of time and space. They're in the now, aren't they?
Well, that's so I started channeling all that is. That's what I call them, because I didn't know what to call them. And like 12, 13 years ago, everyone was channeling things that had a name. And people used to say to me, yeah, but what's their name? And I'd be like, well, they said we're all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be. And so that's their name, all that is. And so the pushback I got, I mean, this was part of that spiritual pushback from people. Oh, yeah, but it has to have a name. There's Abraham, and there's Bashar, and there's this, and there's that. And I'm like, well, they said we are all that is, and all that was, and all that ever will be. So I'm calling them all that is, which I didn't for a while, because a very well-known psychic told me what their name was. So I started using that name. Got pushback for that too, because apparently it was a name belonging to an entity that was never going to speak through anyone else ever again. So I couldn't win.
Yeah, and people, or lots of people, like a name, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they can't comprehend that you haven't got a name.
Yes,
I can understand what you're saying. So is there another book in the making?
I think there will be another book in the making, because my my focus this year is really on being able to step into a position of doing keynote speaking about world peace and how we achieve it. So I feel like I want to rewrite the book without the spirituality so that it can be a bit more mainstream and open that conversation. But I don't know. I do know that I have a number of book-like products that I'm creating and that I have created in the past. I've actually got a children's book that I wrote in 2009. It's called
I remember that.
My Secret Superhero. And I'm writing another children's book for my two grandsons. I've been doing that. It's kind of in process. I also have the Self-Care Dare cards, which I'm turning into a journal type book. So there's a lot of that sort of thing on the horizon, and that's why I'm moving away from. I just feel compelled to just create things that make me feel happy, and to just do one-off sessions, one-on-one sessions with people who just need some guidance or whatever from all that is to do the channeling. So.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
So Carol says, peace exists. It should not be disturbed, and thoughts of war should all be curbed.
I couldn't agree with you more, Carol. We have to stop. And this is the problem with, the world that we're living in. We're not just bringing our own baggage, but the whole world is bringing the baggage of the past and continuing to bring it into the now moment and then recreate it into the future. And it's going to take someone with a lot of power to have that change, because we're so stuck in celebrating the wars that we've had, which means we bring them into the now moment, which means we recreate them into the future. And yes, Carol, we've got to stop doing those sorts of things. It's the only way. Well, that's one of the ways, but cultivating your own inner peace in your own self so that you're not at war with anyone. Ripple effect, one by one, we all become peaceful, and then the world is at peace.
Totally. Right, no, I was going to just say that Steve Cloudsong, he put a message up. So, hello to you all. And have you ever experienced being in the vortex? And if so, what did it feel like for you?
I don't know if it's called the vortex. I'm sure that people explain it that way. Let me just point my camera up a teeny tiny little bit onto this. This is what I would call my vortex. It's also my business logo, funnily enough, but it's my business logo because it channeled through me. All that is gave it to me one day and said, this is your manifestation portal, your time travel portal. I guess you could call it a vortex. So what happens when I go into meditation at times, not every time, but I feel those two circles come in. They make almost a clanging sound as they come together. And so I sit in that little space in the center of the two. And in that moment, I find myself creating within myself a toroidal field that just automatically starts happening in my heart space, and that's when I can shoot out to the edge of the universe and see what's going on out there. Sometimes, other times, I can start thinking about something that I want to manifest, and then have that come much quicker than it would. So I call it my manifestation and travel portal. But I believe, and I was told, that we all have one of these. And I sometimes help people to go into a process where they can download their own portal. And when you bring that into, it feels like it's made of steel. That's what it feels like and sounds like to me when I hear it. Sometimes there will be angels in the two circles, one on each side, traveling with me, or they appear angel-like. Of course, I know that everything that appears any which way only appears because I believe in it. It's actually all me.
Yeah.
Because we're in oneness. They're just aspects of me. So I hope that answers the question. I guess you could say it was a vortex. I don't know what people mean by vortex. I know what Abraham Hicks talks about. A vortex, it's a place of flow. That certainly is that kind of place where it's just everything that you dream to be living becomes available to you. And as I said, I do my time travel through that as well.
Well, I've never heard of that before or known anybody say, so that would be interesting. I'd like to know more about how I can go into my own, but anyway, that's another story. So
well, as I was telling Jeffrey at the beginning, that I don't I'm not very out there in the public, and so this is one of the things that I have taught people in a particular program that I did in 2015, and I've never taught it since then. It's just I just do what comes in each time,
And it could be different from then to now.
Exactly.
Right, I saw something from Carol flash up. Profit before people, greed before care. Are these some of the reasons that the war is in the air?
Yes, indeed.
Now, what was I going to say? So if people want, what guidance or steps would you say for people that are new on the pathway, or sort of just waking up to themselves, or realizing there's more than just sitting on the chair? What steps or guidance would you offer to people to help them?
I think the very first thing that we must do, and the very most important thing that we must do, is to realize that everything is based on me and my feelings and my beliefs. One of the very first things that all that is said to me when I was in those first conversations with them was, whatever you believe is true. And there was nothing else that came after that. It was just whatever you believe is true. And I've learned that that is absolute truth. Whatever you believe is true. And so if, get out there and live life, but live it with the intention of noticing when you get triggered, noticing when you respond or react to someone or something in the world, and notice how it makes you feel. Because your trauma will create two inner aspects. A moment of trauma.
Hello?
I've got the little signals on, right? Every time I do that, do the peace sign, it brings up balloons.
We don't sing happy birthday then.
I'll try not to do that. So the most important thing is to do the inner healing work. And so every single time you have a trauma throughout your life, you create within yourself two energy aspects or inner personalities. One's based on the belief that you made the thing mean about you, and one's based on the way that you felt and you suppressed the feeling. So you've got an energetic stuck in your emotional body and an energetic stuck in your mental body. And those are the things that are creating people to treat you a certain way, because that's the gift that you're giving yourself in order to notice it, go in and heal it, do the inner work, and then transcend it. So you don't need people to keep doing that. And I want to make the point, because of what's happening in the world today, and particularly, again, in the spiritual circles, the hatred and the blame towards people who are in control. If we're one, there is no one in control but me. And everything that they're doing is being done to make me look inside and heal, so that I can transcend my need for war, transcend my need for control, and all of these sorts of things. So that, I think, is the most important thing. When you wake up, forget looking out there and going into psychics to find out what's going to happen to you. Forget going and learning how to do any of these things. The only thing to do is to go inside and heal yourself, whichever modality you choose. But it's an easy job if you're willing to do it. It really is.
And I think that's the key. You've got to be willing to go there, because I know working with different people and talking with different people, you say something and they say, oh, I can't go there. I said, well, only when you're ready.
You must go there. That's the thing. You must go there. The thing that you're avoiding is the thing that will change your life. You go there.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share before we close up today? So, like, for people, obviously, if they want to book a session with you, then they go through your website or you're on Facebook.
Well, the very best thing to do, because I'm a people person, even though I'll be honest, I don't like people, but at the same time, I love people, right? So I'm an introvert, really, but I have extroverted bits and pieces. So the very best place to connect with me is on social media, on Facebook, preferably, either my profile or my page.
Right. Okay.
And just send me a message, ask me a question. I'm all over that.
Yeah. No, it's lovely. So, well, it's been an absolute delight having you on. And if there's nothing else that you wish to share.
Thank you. There is just one thing, if I may, and it's something that all that says that I think is so important for everyone to hear. And so I try to say it every time I get in front of people. And thank you for allowing me to do that. You were born perfect and you haven't changed. I want you to just allow yourself to know that. You were born perfect and you have not changed. That's it. It's such a powerful thing to know.
There's steps and the different steps in life that don't teach you all these sort of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute delight, Anne. So thank you very much. And I look forward to reading your book at some point and reading, all what we've talked about. And so anything you want to add, Jeffrey?
That's very good. I've been listening, just like all our guests have been listening and watching the show. So, no, it's very important. And I think from what I can summarize is the fact that Johnny Farnham's sang a song, which is about the future. And most people live in the future, but they don't live in the now. But what you're really saying is you can make the future now.
Yes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, there you go. Thank you for coming. And where's this guy? We just say thank you very much. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, and good luck, Anne, in all what you're doing. And same time next week, same place. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in.